Welcome to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio. This is Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C., and we have got a new focus for mass rage. It's Al Simpson, the reactionary Republican Al Simpson. He's the co-chair of the infamous genocidal BS Commission. That's the Bowles-Simpson Commission. And that's co-chaired by Erskine Bowles, that parasitical hedge fund hyena, asset stripper, and investment banker left over from the Clinton administration when he had tried to destroy Social Security, privatizing it in a secret pact with Newt Gingrich. And, of course, what stopped that was the explosion of the Monica Lewinsky scandal. But now, Al Simpson and Erskine Bowles are at it again, and these are the two co-chairs of the Genocide Commission. This is the death panel par excellence, and it's bipartisan. There is no greater index and barometer of the absolute moral, intellectual, political bankruptcy of the two parties than the people who are on this commission who represent the broad mainstream of both political parties. And Al Simpson is no exception. Of course, he is now in his dotage, so to speak. He should be reading Cicero's De Senectute to get some tips on how to keep his mouth shut. So he blurts out with his ragbag mind what's going on in his head. And he obviously hates Social Security. This is a good lesson for our what can we say, fellow citizens there in the Tea Party, the people who have chosen themselves to make themselves the dupes and useful idiots of the finance oligarchy and finance capital should look at Al Simpson. What's his program? It's to loot and destroy Social Security. Why is that? Because there's a government deficit. Oh, how about that? A government deficit. Does that have anything to do with bailouts? Does that have to do with huge sums of money, $24 trillion at last count, that were convoyed into the pockets and coffers of finance capital? J.P. Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Citibank, Bank of New York Mellon, State Street Bank, you know the drill. They got all that money. And now there's a deficit because Wall Street had to be bailed out, of course. Wall Street is the same as Main Street, so bailing out Wall Street is going to help Main Street, right? Well, no. But still, that leads to a deficit. Now, the other problem is, of course, those same Wall Street interests that were bailed out had never paid any tax to speak of, right? They don't pay a penny on Wall Street turnover. And even in those states where there is a Wall Street sales tax or Tobin tax or securities transfer tax, it turns out that that money has all been rebated by the puppet government of New York. Bipartisan, Hugh Carey, with Mario Cuomo coming in, and Pataki, and even Spitzer apparently never changed it, and currently the governor of New York, Patterson. So even where there is a tax, it's not even being collected. Well, we want it taxed, and we want that tax collected. And it turns out that if you have a Tobin tax, if you have essentially a modest 1% Wall Street sales tax, securities transfer tax, you essentially have solved the problem of the federal deficit, and you have solved the problem of Social Security. Remember, Social Security right now has no problem at all. There's no problem with Social Security. It is guaranteed solvent at the current rate, which I consider too low, but it's solvent until 2037. There are a few human institutions that can be said to be stable so far out. So what does Simpson say? He sent out an email, and of course he's had these explosions before. He's an unreconstructed reactionary curmudgeon, but indeed a genocidalist. Let's not make him into some kind of a Dutch uncle. He's not. He's a genocidalist. He's up there with the greats of the 20th century. You know who they are. He says that Social Security is a milk cow with 310 million teats. 310 million, that means everybody in the United States is a parasite. Isn't that interesting? We're all parasites from the point of view of these financier oligarchs. It's the kind of idea of useless eaters or culling the herd or these other social Darwinist and really animal husbandry metaphors that Malthus and Darwin and people like this have liked. Social Darwinism here, to be sure. So he very foolishly sent this out in an email. Now, Simpson has to be fired. That's number one. According to Fox News, on the 26th of August, the word is that he won't be fired. He'll stay on this commission. Here we have the White House. This is the Obama White House, right? The Hope and Change, the Hope Pope in the White House says, Alan Simpson has apologized, and while we regret and do not condone his comments, we accept his apology, and he will continue to serve, says Jennifer Psaki, P-S-A-K-I, White House Deputy Communications Director, talking to the New York Times. Sorry, guess again. We want Simpson out. Simpson has to be fired. The next step is this whole genocidal commission, this sinister monstrosity of financier oligarchs, has to be shut down, abrogated, terminated, no more. And, of course, then there's the Nuremberg issue, because what some of these people have advocated, and that would include Simpson and Bowles and Alice Rivlin and privatizer Ryan, they're all on there. And, of course, the staff. The staff is the Peterson Institute, the asset-stripping hedge fund hyena Peter Peterson, the former head of Lehman Brothers. What a success story. And currently involved in the Blackstone Group, one of the most predatory of the bottom fishers and profiteers and asset strippers in Wall Street. He's providing the staff. And we know that Peterson has been waging a campaign for decades in attempting to bootleg this into areas of culture where you normally wouldn't expect it, that entitlements are unsustainable. Well, you look at the 2007-2008 crisis. Did entitlements or government deficits play any role in that? None whatsoever. Deregulation and privatization it was that opened the door, the privatization of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, but above all, the deregulation of derivatives, which we stress again, derivatives were illegal from 1936 until 1982, and there was a hangover of illegality and uncertainty that lasted until 1999, and as soon as you completely free up derivatives and let everybody buy them, which was Graham, Leach, Bliley, and other legislation of 1999, you're headed straight into a huge world economic panic and world economic depression. So Wall Street caused the crisis, not subprime lenders. No, subprime is marginal. It's penny ante, nickel, diamond, quarter, peanuts, compared to 1.5 quadrillion of toxic and kited derivatives. And that's, of course, the goal here. We have some quotes, I think, quite interesting, which I'll get to later in the program, from Glenn Ford at the Black Agenda Report, that Wall Street is hungry again, the ravenous beast, the Moloch of the investment bankers, hedge fund hyenas, asset strippers, and all the rest of them. They want more. Johnny Rocco wants more, and Johnny Rocco is the spirit of Wall Street, the shakedown, the Dillinger, the thief coming after you. So Nuremberg, the Nuremberg standard, of course, is that if you consciously deprive civilian populations or prisoners of war, but civilian populations count emphatically. They're one of the central points of the whole thing. If you knowingly deprive them of adequate food, housing, medical care, and other provisions for human survival, you are guilty under the Nuremberg crimes, high crimes against humanity, Class A war criminal. Al Simpson is a Class A war criminal. Get him out. Mobilize to get him out. Get Al Simpson out of there. Back in a minute.